2 Kings chapter 11. Queen Ahaniah ruled in Judah. When Ahaniah, the mother of the king Ahaziah of Judah, learned that her son was dead, she began to destroy the rest of the royal family. But Ahaziah's sister Jososeba, the daughter of King Jehoram, took Ahaziah's infant son Joash and stoned him away from among the rest of the king's children, who were about to be killed. He put Joash and his nurse in a bedroom, and they hid him from Ahaniah, so the children was not murdered. Joash remained hidden in the temple of the Lord for 6 years, while Ahaniah ruled over the land. Revolt against Ahaniah. In the 7th year of Ahaniah's reign, Jehoiada the priest summoned the commander, the Carite, mercenary, and the palace guard to come to the temple of the Lord. He made a solemn pact with them and made them swear on oaths of loyalty there in the Lord's temple. Then they showed them the king's son. Jehoiada told them, "This is what you must do. A third of you who are on duty on the Sabbaths are to guard the royal palace itself. Another third of you are to stand guard at the third gate, and the final third must stand guard behind the palace guard. These 3 groups will all guard the palace. The other 2 units who are off duty on the Sabbath must stand guard for the king at the Lord's temple. Form a bodyguard around the king and keep your weapon in hand. Kill everyone who tries to break through. Stay with the king whenever he goes." So the commander did everything as Jehoiada the priest ordered. The commander took charge of the men reporting for duty at Sabbath, as well as those who were going off duty. They brought them all the Jehoiada the priest, and he supplied them with a spear and a small shield that has once belonged to King David and was stored in the temple of the Lord. The palace guards stationed themselves around the king with their weapons ready. They formed a line from the south side of the temple around to the north side and all around the altar. Then Jehoiada brought out Joash, the king's son, placed a crown on his head, and presented him with a copy of God's laws. They anointed him and proclaimed him king, and everyone clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" The death of Ahaniah. When Ahaniah heard the noise made by the palace guard and the people, she hurried to the Lord's temple to see what was happening. When she arrived, she saw a newly crowned king standing in his palace of authority by the pillar, as was the custom at the time of coronation. The commander and trumpeter were surrounding him, and people from all over the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. When Ahaniah saw all this, she tore her clothes in despair and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada the priest ordered the commander who were in charge of the troop, "Take her to the soldier in front of the temple and kill everyone who tried to rescue her." For the priest had said, "She must not be killed in the temple of the Lord." So they seized her and led her out of the gate where horses enter the palace ground, and she was killed there. Jehoiada's religion reform. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between Lord and the king and the people that they would be the Lord people. He also made a covenant between the king and the people, and all the people of the land went over to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They demolished the altar and smashed the idols to pieces, and they killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altar. Jehoiada the priest stationed guard at the temple of the Lord. Then the commander, the Carite, Magi, the palace guard, and all the people of the land escorted the king from the temple of the Lord. They went through the gate of the guard and into the palace, and the king took his seat on the royal throne. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful because Ahaniah has been killed at the king's palace. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. Chapter 12. Joash repairs the temple. Joash began to rule over Judah in the 7th year of the king Jehu reign in Israel. He reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother was Zibian from Bathsheba. All his life Joash did was what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, because Jordan the priest instructed him. Yet even so, he did not destroy the pagan shrine, and the people still offered sacrifice and burned incense there. One day King Joash said to the priest, "Connect all the money brought as a sacred offering to the Lord's temple. Whether it is a regular assessment, a payment of vow, or a voluntary gift, let the priest take some of that money to pay for whatever repairs are needed at the temple." But by the 23rd year of Joash's reign, the priest still had not repaired the temple. So King Joash called for the Joiada and the other priests and asked them, "Why haven't you repaired the temple? Don't use any more money for your own need. From now, it must all be spent on the temple repair." So the priests agreed not to accept any more money from the people, and they also agreed to let others take responsibility for repairing the temple. Then Joiada the priest bored a hole in the lip of a large chest and set it on the hand side of the altar at the entrance of the temple of the Lord. The priest guarded the entrance to pour all the people's contribution into the chest. Whenever the chest became full, the court secretary and the high priest counted the money and that had been brought to the Lord's temple and put it into a bag. Then they gave the money to the construction supervisor, who used it to pay the people work on the Lord's temple, the carpenter, the builder, the mason, and the stone cutters. They also used the money to buy the timber and the finished stone needed for repairing the Lord's temple, and they paid any other expense related to the temple's restoration. The money brought to the temple was not used for making silver bowls, lamps, slaver basin, tramp, or other article of gold or silver for the temple of the Lord. It was paid to the workmen who used it for the temple repair. Not accounting to this money was required from the construction supervisor because they were honest and trustworthy men. However, the money that was contributed for guilty offering and sin offering was not brought into the Lord's temple. It was given to the priests for their own use. The end of the Joash reign. About this time, King Hazael of Aram went to war against Gash and captured it. Then he turned to attack Jerusalem. King Joash collected all the sacred objects that Joshaphat, Joram, and Ahaziah, the previous king of Judah, had dedicated along with what he himself had dedicated. He sent them all to the Hazael along with all the gold in the treasure of the Lord temple and the royal palace. So Hazael called off his attack on Jerusalem. The rest of the event in the Joash reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of history of King Judah. Joash's officer plotted against him and assassinated him at Beth Mino on the road of Sinai. The assassin was Josiah son of Shema and Jeff son of Shimon, both trusted advisors. Joash was burned with his ancestor in the city of David. Then his son Amaziah became the next king. Chapter 13. Jehoshaphat ruled in Israel. Jehoshaphat son of Jehu became to rule over Israel in the 23rd year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 17 years, but he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam son of Nebat, continuing the sin that Jeroboam has led Israel to commit. So the Lord was very angry with Israel, and he allowed King Hazael of Aram and his son Benhadad to defeat them repeatedly. Then Jehoahaz prayed for the Lord's help, and the Lord heard his prayer, for he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressed Israel. So the Lord provided someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Then Israel lived in safety again as they had in former days. But they continued to sin, follow the evil example of Jeroboam. They also allowed to the Asherim pole in Israel to remain standing. Finally, Jeroboam's army was reduced to 50 charioteers and 10 chariots and 10,000-foot soldiers. The king of Aram had killed the others, trapped them like dust under his feet. The rest of the event of the Jeroboam's reign, everything he did, and the extent of his power are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Joash died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son Joash became the next king. Joash ruled Israel. Joash, son of Joash, began to rule over Israel in the 37 years of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 16 years, but he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sin that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. The rest of evil of Joash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, and recording the king of the book of the history of the king of Israel. When Joash died, he was buried in Samaria with the king of Israel. Then his son Jeroboam II became the next king. Elisha's final prophecy. When Elisha was in his last illness, King Joash of Israel visited him and wept over him. My father, I see the chariot and the charity of Israel, he cried. Elisha told him, get a bow and some arrow. And the king did as he was told. Elisha told him, put your hand on the bow. And Elisha laid his own hand on the king's hand. Then he commanded, open that eastern window. And he opened. Then he said, shoot. So he shot an arrow. Elisha proclaimed, this is the Lord's arrow, an arrow of victory over Aram, for you will completely conquer the Arameans at Aphek. Then he said, now pick up the other arrow and strike them against the ground. So the king picked them up and struck the ground 3 times. The man of God was angry with him. You should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, he exclaimed. Then you would have beaten Aram until it was entirely destroyed. Now you will be victorious only 3 times. Then Elisha died and was buried. Group of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once, when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of the raiders, so they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elisha and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elisha's bone, and the dead man revived and jumped to his feet. King Hazael of Aram has oppressed Israel during the entire reign of the king Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. He pitied them because of his confidence with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to this day he still have not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. King Hazael of Aram died, and his son beheaded became the next king. Then Joash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ahaz, son of the town that had been taken from Joash's father, Jehoahaz. Joash defeated him on 3 occasions, and he recovered the Israelites' tongues. And then we will go into chapter 14. So those 3 chapters is talking about there's working between those and those chaos history, and the king and the sin, and the king come and go, and then king sing and died. That is always, it's like a cycle. It's like still happening today. So that is human's nature. It's remind us we need to confess our sin, repent our sin, and follow God's commandment. Alright, so that is today's Bible learning. Hope everyone like it. God bless everyone. Let's see you tomorrow.